Welcome to the Tony and Dakota podcast. It's been a little while, guys, but today we got a real special guest that Tony's going to introduce.
This is Lonnie Norris.
Oh, wow.
I found his middle name online. He has the same birthday as me, September 5th,
wow.
so we're birthday brothers.
Belated birthday. Okay.
Yeah, you just turned.
I just turned 70 years old.
I wasn't going to
Wow.
announce it because I didn't know if you wanted to share it.
I don't mind.
This is Lonnie Norris. I know him most from Granite Ridge Builders. He's the VP of sales there still, right?
Right.
Still serving that company. And then we came to know his son through MBN Properties. We had him on the podcast, and he was awesome. And so since he was awesome, we're like, well, let's go back to the source and see how if the apple falls from the tree or like if there's different branches of the tree. You know, you never know. So
Yeah.
excited to interview you, Lonnie. Thanks for coming back after we couldn't get our sound equipment working the last time.
I jinxed things, I guess. But yeah.
And Lonnie said he caught some
I
water
did. I
in
got
his
something in my
throat
voice. Sorry about that.
on the way here, so you got to give him some grace.
Or people are going to like his voice more.
Maybe
They're
they'll
like,
like
dang,
it,
yeah, they're like, dang,
Yeah,
his
maybe
voice
they'll-
sounds like a DJ voice
I
now.
thought gravel was in, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Gravelly.
Gravelly.
Like, Lonnie, do you pick up smoking? Or like, how do you get that gravel in your voice?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
All right. I think when we had talked before, you know, it's interesting. There's this one model for understanding values, like people's values over time, and I think that you spent a little bit of time at the Bible college, right?
I graduated from Fort Wayne Bible College back in the 70s. Right.
And you kind of did your time doing like the thing that most people do, which is like go to college, get a job, kind of work your way up. And those values are values that I feel like were kind of pushed on your generation and maybe the next generation. But by the time it got to my generation, we started to get the internet and we started to see like these entrepreneurial values kind of get pushed on us. So we kind of like, I noticed you sort of leaning into those with Granite Ridge and like actually making good money and actually having some wealth and creating that. And then it seemed like you sort of shifted again to something I would call like world causes, where you try to do your best to like just help people in any way possible. Because once you earn your money and you realize that like, yeah, I can't really do anything more with all this money that I've got, there has to be something bigger, something more purposeful, something that means something to you. So you guys have been doing some missions work and those sort of things. Like, what do you think? How do you think that your values have shifted over time? Like, did I nail it, or is there something else that has always been true for you? Or
Yeah, well, even when I was going to Fort Wayne Bible College, I was still selling real estate. So I had my foot in education and a foot in business, thinking that I'm going to be a businessman. And I think I really compromised what I was called to do, which was more on the mission side in those days. But I justified it by saying, I'll just be a good businessman, and I'll do what I need to do and be a good layman in the church, et cetera, et cetera. But it wasn't enough. And so I came to a point in the 90s when I said, you know what? I think I'm called to something different. I want to say greater, but different. And that resulted in me putting real estate on hold, selling some of my development stuff and putting real estate on hold. And I took myself and my wife and our 4 kids to Russia, where we did mission work for 7 years. And somebody said it wasn't my idea, but they said, you know, as you get older, you begin to think about significance versus success. And I think I'm at a point in my life where I think I want to dwell on or push more towards significant things and success. You can have both, you know, they can be hand in hand, but I want to be known as someone who's done things significant, making an impact. And like you said, a lot of people around us need help. So, and that's a chord that runs through Granite Ridge Builders as well.
Can you define both of those for us then? Like, when you say significance, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and so does success. So define both of those, and what is the differences for you?
Yeah, I think most people would measure success in dollars and cents, or by houses and lands and et cetera, et cetera. That I think of more of the monetary, secular side of it. Where significance gets into more of who people are and what they're called to do, helping people get on the right path that's going to bring purpose and fulfillment in their lives, and ultimately also do things that are significant. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so what was the difference then? You said that real estate, you were kind of like, doing that in real estate and stuff. Did you feel like you couldn't make as big of a significance as you could,
Yeah, in my case, I feel like I was called to missions or to ministry. And I pushed that call aside for several years. Again, I'm going to justify it by I'm going to be a good businessman. I'm going to go to church. I'm even going to teach Sunday school at church, be involved, And I tried that, and it just wasn't. I was falling short, and I knew it in my heart. And so, kind of a crisis point came. I says, all right, if God will give me a second chance, I'm going to go in a different direction, and that opened the door to go to Russia, which was in 1993.
So this is like probably difficult question to answer, so you can take a little bit of time to think about it. How would you quantify objectively? How would you measure your impact?
As it relates to life in general, or the ministry side of things, or
I think I'm most interested in the ministry, but I guess we could do like a combination of both.
Yeah, I think our primary purpose is to glorify God. That's what it is for me. And being in tune with Him. And I think He kind of lays a path out for us if we'll look for it. And in my case, in my wife's case, it led us, from the States to a foreign land. And I'm not sure what the question was. I actually
just how do you measure impact?
Weeds. Yeah, impact. And so in my case, we went to Russia. We were obedient. I would say that's a whole story in itself about how the door opened for us to go to Russia, because it wasn't.
Tell us the story.
Well, if you want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it wasn't just a simple like, hey, babe.
No, this is a
I
weird
heard
one.
Russia.
I heard about Russia, and I think it'd be a great idea.
It was almost the opposite. But honestly, I was very involved in real estate. I had rental property. I was doing development work. I had partners. And we were going down paths that, you don't just put a lot in the ground and sell it the next day and be out of it in 30 days. This was like a year or two commitment. And so I had that stuff going on. And even though my wife and I both agreed, hey, let's figure out how to put this on hold and pursue missions, I thought, wow, this isn't going to happen very quickly. So I said, okay, well, we'll just see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's the route we're going to go. Well, one night my wife says, look, we've been talking about this and we've made this commitment. We need to pray for specific direction. Pray for specific direction. And so we did. It was a pretty brief prayer. I remember it's like it was yesterday. Lord, you feel like you're calling us this way. If it's your will, you need to show us how and when and all that. As soon as I said amen, the phone rang.
No.
I'm serious. And I got 4 little kids. They were 7, 8, 6, and 5 at the time. I said, all right, honey, you take the call. I'll take the kids upstairs and put them into bed. And couldn't have been written any funnier. But so I take them upstairs, put them in bed. That's usually takes, a few minutes getting them all down and in bed to stay. Came down the stairs and my wife says, we just got our answer. Seriously. I said, what? And then she told me that a friend of mine from Michigan had called. And he called because his dad was in Russia at the time. This would have been 1991 or 2, looking up some old relatives because the doors were open. And he felt like, he looked around and said, there's no churches over here. And he had remembered that his son, my friend, had told him about us going someplace, going to put our name in the hat and go someplace on a volunteer mission basis. And he thought, I'm going to call Gary and tell Gary to call that to his friends and find out if they'd have any interest at all in coming to Russia. So that's literally how the door opened for us to go. We didn't know at the time whether we could make that happen or not, but we began to pursue that direction. Next thing we know, our church had a volunteer mission program, and they said, hey, would you guys consider going to Russia? Where we said we felt called and the door was opening, go and be pioneer missionaries, just kind of look around, get established there and see if it might be a possible place to plant a church or two.
Wow.
So we went. Took about a year to get stuff sold. We sold our home at auction in Cedarville, which was an interesting experience. A guy came to our auction to buy our piano, doctor in the area, ended up buying our house.
What?
Yeah. Oh, that's not the end of the story. So and then he came to me and says, I'm buying your house and stuff. This is exciting, but well, I don't need it right away. Do you want to rent it? I said, oh yeah, we'd like to rent it until we get ready to go to Russia, which was going to be 7 or 8 or 9 months later, maybe a little bit more than that. Great. I'd like that. So we continued to rent our house. And then he came to us in about the 10th month or whatever it was and said, my wife and I, we're not going to move into the house. Do you care if we put it on the market? I said, it's your house. And sure, we'll accommodate that. So he allowed us to rent the house back from him while we're getting prepared to go to Russia. So I was able to take my assets and work those around. And then he ended up putting the house on the market. The first person that looked at it bought it. It was a win-win. He made a little gain on it. We had what we needed, and we're off to Russia. We went.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Crazy days.
I was going to ask you, like, that call, like, not the call. I just meant, like, in general, the call of that feeling. Like, was it a feeling, intuition, your wife? But it sounds like it was a little bit of all of that, and then the prayer, and then the timing of everything. Just like you knew that it was from God. Is that right?
Yeah. When I was 12 or 13, it became clear to me that God was calling me to like missions or ministry. Mm-hmm. I fought that call. The only thing I thought of was preaching. And I couldn't be a preacher because I don't want to do a wedding. I don't want to do a funeral. And the idea of going into a hospital and calling on somebody, the smell of a hospital would bring me down to my knees. I couldn't even go into a hospital. So I would say, I'd push that aside. I literally fought those feelings and that understanding of what God was calling me to. So I pushed it aside. I went to a liberal arts school in Kankakee, Illinois, fighting that call. Left a business degree, thinking, that's not for me. Came back to Fort Wayne, then I had a uncle who was a prophet at Fort Wayne Bible and kind of encouraged me. Well, you need a degree, yeah. So studied Christian education over there. But I said, but I'm really going to be a good Christian businessman, successful businessman, and went that direction. But it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't enough. And my wife agreed from almost the day I met her that she felt called to missions or ministry. And so she was always on me to really pursue what we've been called to do from the moment we got married or before. And so that was the background that led me. Wasn't an audible voice, but it was something I felt and sensed in my heart. Mm-hmm. Needed to do.
So that was 31 years ago that you made that decision.
It was 1992.
Oh, I thought you said 3.
3 is when we went.
All right, 32
yes.
32 years ago, you got the call, which would have made you 38 years old.
Yes.
Do you feel like you became more spiritual as you aged?
Wow. I think there's growth and maturity on that side. I feel like I'm doing what God's called me to do now, which involves housing and helping people. A lot of first-time home buyers into housing, affordable housing. But there's growth. There's maturity and spiritual growth. I think if we're living the way we're called to live, reading the Word, et cetera, there's going to be growth. That seed planted in my heart's going to grow. And so the answer is, and at 70 years old, I'm hopefully a little wiser as well.
Do you then feel like a peace whenever you're feeling like you're in that work? Because what I've thought a lot about, because I've thought about very similar things, honestly, where I'm like, okay, what am I called to do? What is going to be the biggest contribution to the kingdom? Like, what's going to be forever? Because obviously, like, business, money, houses, all that stuff, like, it doesn't really matter because it's all going to go away, right? It's going
to go away.
Yeah, so we know that, but then there is some things that last forever. And so I believe the impact that we have on, like, the employees, the different people around us, how we treat the sellers, like, all of that stuff can last forever. And so then for me, it's not about necessarily what you choose to do, but who you are while you do it. And so that's kind of been my reasoning, and then just still being aware of, like, this is more shaping me into the person that I need to become for whatever's next that God has for me. But, like, I guess, do you feel peace, or do you feel it's more about who you are while you're doing it? Or, like, how do you know when you're in the will, or, like, you're doing the best contribution? Or do you look at it for, like, an ROI? Like, is this going to impact God's kingdom the most, or is there something else I could do that's more? Like, how do you kind of view and analyze all of these different thoughts?
I think you have to stay open to it, because I really believe that God calls people to in certain directions. Mm-hmm. Seems like sometimes very clearly, and other times you say, hey, I'm good at this. I like to do this. And then sitting back and saying, how can I do this, the things I like to do, and impact the kingdom and do it for the glory of God? Because I believe that's our primary purpose, and we oftentimes miss it. 60% of Americans, if you go out on the street and stick a microphone in people's face and say, why are you here? They can't answer that question. Americans, what is life purpose? Well, I don't know. Be a good person. They really struggle with that. When I think that's a very important question to ask and pursue is, what is life purpose? Why am I here? What can I do to, in my case, with Christian principles, what can I do to be a good Christian and to encourage other people to do the same thing?
I think I just saw an Instagram quote not too long ago that I thought was really cool. I think Jordan Wildman actually sent me the video. Did he send you the same one?
I don't know yet.
It's about kids, so probably not. But it just says the only thing that you have a chance at taking to heaven with you is your kids.
Oh, wow.
And so then I think about fatherhood and how you raised Silas. So we had him on the podcast.
You did, yeah. And by the way, he's not that incredible. But go ahead. I'm just kidding.
So
we need you to say that again with the camera facing us.
So
we're gonna clip that.
So when it comes to parenting and that sort of thing, I feel like with Silas, like he was specifically telling us that he didn't do super great in school, but it didn't seem like he felt a lot of judgment from you and from mom and that sort of thing. Like he wasn't getting continuously beat up about it. He was just like, I knew, and everybody around me knew that like I wasn't going to be an A+ student. I was never going to be that guy. So I did the best that I could. And sometimes I was ADHD and all over the place, but I knew I was going to find my niche somewhere else. So when it comes to like parenting, what advice do you have for people? What was your experience? What were you blessed with? Because I feel like with my daughter, I'm like, dude, she was exactly perfectly what I needed. And just to help me like develop, grow up. Like she's so cute. Like she's the best.
She's incredible.
Yeah. She's the best. She just ended up being. I was like, how did I get
Yeah.
blessed with like the best kid for me? And so I'm wondering if there are moments where you were like, this is great and this is perfect, and then other moments where you're like, why did I end up with this kid? What is God doing to me?
Moments. But one of the things, going back to this call, so we went to Russia in 1993. We lived in about once we got settled after the hotel for several weeks, we settled in about a 900 square foot apartment with a family of 6. So we're on top of each other.
In Russia?
In Russia.
Oh my God.
We're in an apartment, and the kids did develop friendships really quick, and they picked up on the language quickly. But still, there was no movies to go to. There wasn't much on TV. We had a little bit of TV stuff going on with videotapes and stuff, but we had a lot of quality time in that 900 square foot apartment that I'm really grateful for, because it was a season of life. As I look over my last, 70 years, that which I can look over, that 7 years in Russia was an incredible season of our life for our family. Impactful season. I think my kids, including Silas, say, wow, it was a great time. The worldview that they've developed, the friendships they've developed, second language, and then the relationship with mom and dad, you just can't buy that. And so I'm really grateful for that. It was also before, there wasn't iPhones. Didn't have phones, So again, and in the Russian culture, relationships are really, really important. It's different. I can't explain it. The old adage was, would you rather have $1 million or 1 million friends? In Russia, you'd always say it'd be 1 million friends. And they really built relationships. So I think that was really critical, and that included in our own family having great relationships. I told the kids stories. You put them in 2 rooms that are 8 inches apart or whatever. How are they going to go to sleep? Well, I got my kids in their beds, and I make up these stories, and literally that was a very regular basis. I usually tell them stories that were very long, several chapters long. I tell them one chapter, okay, well, the chapter 2's tomorrow night. Assuming you're good, blah, blah, blah. And so is that kind of a relationship and time that we went through as a family that was really good.
That's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, I used to tell my daughter bedtime stories too, and I would make them up. And I used to tell her, we got like a tiger there on the back wall. Yeah. So I'm Tony the tiger.
Okay.
And so I used to make up stories of like, there was a princess. I don't know, like what's her name be? Let's just say Presley. Let's just say her name was Presley. She's like, that's my name. I'd be like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she rode on this tiger. I don't know. The tiger's name's Tony.
Being creative. I mean, I think we're also called, as God is our creator and he's created us to create. And so if we can be creative in our families with our kids, unfortunately, sometimes our iPhones and social network pulls us aside and we don't spend the time that we need to. But I'm really grateful for that season, particularly in the development of our kids. Yeah.
Is there anything about Russia that you didn't like so much, or values that you didn't want to instill? Or
Well, yeah, the kids at a very young age drink alcohol and smoke, and my kids were, involved in that some. I went out of my apartment one day, and Silas is like 13 years old. He's got the longest cigar in your mouth. What are you doing? Well, like it's nothing wrong with it. Seriously. So some of those habits or some of those things that kids will gravitate toward is interesting. I won't mention the entity, but one of the big cigarette makers in the United States. We're going through a period where they realized, oh, these aren't good for you. And they were kind of doing some things here to make you think that they were on board with that concept. You won't believe what they were doing in Eastern Europe. They were putting up big tents, going out on the streets with these pretty girls and giving anybody that wants them free cigarettes.
Wow.
Market share's falling here, but they're going to go over there. That really bugged me. I thought, man, here's a 60 Minutes or 2020 waiting to happen, what they were doing. But anyway, big difference. And that was a problem. And the kids, two of my boys went into Ukraine a few years later and did a thing on drug addiction there and the use of alcohol, which include, and alcohol, misuse of alcohol. And they showed a 12-year-old kid going up to a kiosk outside little shops and buying a beer right in front of him and popping it, and off he went. They just didn't care. It wasn't requirements. Kind of laws that you should buy by, but nobody did. So it's a problem.
What are the biggest values that you instill in your kids? Like in your 4 kids, like what's the biggest ones? You're like, hey, if you had top 5, these are the most important ones. What would they be?
My kids are boys, so love
all
your,
4.
My daughter passed away.
Oh, okay.
Sarah, she passed away when she was 15. We were home and there was an accident. And,
oh my gosh.
Lost her 24 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So 3 boys. Boys, love your wives. Spend time with your family the much you can. They're beginning to understand, and they're all involved in sports now, and they're participating as coaches and as moms driving to the the various locations and sports and so on and so forth. And then also put church in your recipe, and that's hard. I mean, especially some of these sports things now are on Sunday mornings or whatever. But put church in your recipe early, because as those kids get to now at their ages, they're interested. But if you don't, when they get 12 or 13, trust me, they'll find better things in their minds to do.
Right.
And I'm trying to convey our primary purpose is to glorify God. And my own motto is, I'm here to glorify God. I'm here to do good works, which is biblical, and to teach and encourage others to do the very same thing. Glorify God, do good works, and teach and encourage others. That's my motto. I think it's biblically based.
I like it. A couple of your kids, I don't know all 4 of them. Obviously, I know Nate and Silas, but they have this entrepreneurial thing where they're like very successful business people. You are doing pretty well business-wise too. So where did that come from? Like what? Because like you got this side of you that's like church, but then you are that way, the business side, and they're that way. And so like whether you wanted to or not, it feels like the value's somewhere there. Where do you think that comes from, or where does it fit in?
It's in my DNA, and it's in my wife's family's DNA. So they've seen it growing up. My dad was an inventor.
Okay.
He did all kinds of crazy things, nothing that really, made him millions of dollars, but he was inventing liquid food for chickens. He's special flooring out of corn cobs, cleaning compounds. He actually invented, before it was actually came out, putting seed in like a tube, and then you'd put it down in the ground, and that tube would dissolve and you plant it that way. I don't know if he was the first, but he actually invented that concept.
Wow.
So he had it. and he owned his own business and was involved in some sales things as well. So definitely on his side. And then my father-in-law and my mother-in-law own their own real estate company, and they were builders, again creators. So I think it's in our DNA from both sides of the family.
Okay.
I was trying to remember. I had a thought on something that you said a bit earlier, but I can't. It's blanking now.
Yeah, let's talk about like your career then. So when you were in Russia, what were you doing over there, and then how did it all transition once you got back, and then to today?
Yeah. The neat time in Russia was I didn't know what I was going to go. We didn't have an agenda.
Yep.
The church were volunteers. The church said, "Hey, go hang out, meet people, and see if there's an interest in spiritual things," which there was. Great spiritual things. So
From the people in Russia, you
yes,
say?
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, yes. There's a lot of atheists and agnostics, but there's also a lot of people that believed in God. They just didn't have a chance to know anything about Him. They had never seen a Bible because it was illegal to have them.
Oh, really?
It was illegal. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was illegal. So when we got there, we had an interpreter that was really a neat gal that said, "Oh, I want my friends to gather and let's talk Bible stuff,
Wow.
spiritual stuff." So we gathered, Bible study.
So what happens if they found out you had a Bible?
Our church provided us all the Bibles we could use. We went out on corners and gave them out, gave them away as we started the church. Gave them out in church. Everybody to have a Bible. We could get a Bible in everybody's hands.
So if it's illegal, though, what's the repercussions of having
It was illegal until 90 or 91.
Oh, so
we were there. Yeah, it was
Got it.
legal.
Okay.
But they weren't available because there weren't any.
Yes, got it.
Yeah,
Got
it was still
Okay.
a new thing. Well, when we'd go out on the streets and give them out, we'd have 50, 100 people all over us.
Wow.
And we found out a little later, some of them were getting more than one because then they would take it to the next corner and sell it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurs.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, and actually, I was okay with it. I
Yeah.
thought, they've got one. They know the value of it. Now they're selling it to somebody that really wants it. Okay.
Yeah.
That person's more likely to read it.
Yeah.
Micro business opportunities.
If you pay, you pay attention.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't remember your question.
Okay, so I was just saying, transitioning from what you were doing for work and then all the way up to today.
Yeah. So when I got to Russia, we started teaching Bible, and then out of that came a group that literally made a decision that they wanted to live a Christian life and worship God, because we talked about primary purpose. And so as that clicked and lives changed, we started meeting then on Sundays for a worship time, and that evolved into a church. And the neat thing was, which I didn't see this coming, we ended up building 3 churches and remodeling another building into a church ministry center while we were there.
While you were there in 7 years?
In 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Some pretty neat buildings. So I was really thrilled for that. And
So was the church paying you then eventually, or?
we went over as volunteers for the first year and a half, and then the church put us on a career contract, which then they paid us to be there. And we had enough resources to go. We knew we'd stay for a year or two, pretty inexpensive to live there at the time. And then it just worked out fine. The church said, "We'd like you to stay, and we want to make you career missionaries."
Okay. So then you got back, let's just say close to 2000.
2000.
What happened then, and like how did you get back into real estate, or were you just still always doing it?
Yeah, we came back in 2000. And we got our kids, because we knew that we were going to be home for a while, got our kids into the local schools and realized that they were about 6 months behind. Not a full year, but we were doing homeschool stuff in Russia.
Yep.
And so we thought, we better get them in here. And as they got integrated into the school system, we went through one kid's sickness that said, "You need to stay here at this point in time." So we kind of delayed going back. And then our daughter was killed in this tragic accident out where Deer Track golf course is, right on Tonka Road. And after that happened, we realized we're a family, that needs some health, emotional, mental health, and in particular our boys. And so we just said, let's stay here. And the longer we stayed here, the more we realized, hey, we're integrated now back. We need to stay. We've continued to support missions. I can continue to have a contract to go back and forth for a couple years. and we're still involved in that stuff as far as that goes. But it just made sense, and we figured out, hey, we're going to support missions and our work there in just a new and fresh, different way.
And so when did you get back with Granite Ridge, or like how long have you been with them? Because you've been there a while, right?
Yeah. So we're back. Wonder what we're going to do. My brother-in-law, Tony, came to me. And by the way, Tony was my partner in some of my development stuff. I brought him on, back in probably about 90, 91, and we did stuff together. And then I'm back now, and he's getting ready to pull away from Delagrange Homes, an old reputable builder. The owner was retiring, and so he was going to pull away and do his own thing. And it was just perfect time. He said, hey, would you consider helping me start this thing? I said, sounds like a good deal to me. And I did say, hey, I won't be an owner because I may go back to the mission field, but I'll come in as vice president. And
what year was that?
That was that was 2001.
Wow. Okay, so you've been a part of that since 2001 as VP since then?
Yes.
Since the beginning?
Since the beginning.
I did not know that.
Yeah, since the beginning. Just a handful. It was about 5 or 6. He had Delagrange Homes. He pulled off and brought 3 or 4 or 5 people with him, and then me and maybe 1 or 2 other people. We started Granite Ridge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did Silas and them work for you guys at one point too?
They did. All 4 of those partners, all 4 of those MBM guys got
Okay.
their teeth, at Granite Ridge.
And so
Sales.
what was that like then, like when they branched off? Was that like, oh, dang, like now that kind of sucks that you took all it? Because something that we have a lot of times is like people like, don't train them and teach them everything you know because then they're just going to go take it and
Right,
they're going to be a competitor. Did you feel that, or were you more like, hey, I'm glad to see you guys go do your own thing? Or like, what was the kind of discussions there?
I would say for Tony, my brother-in-law, who's our owner, and myself, it was not a problem at all. We took pride in the fact that we had trained them, and now they're jumping out of the nest and they're going to do their own thing. God bless them, which he has, and they do a great job. Yeah. And they learned a lot of the tricks from Granite Ridge. Just didn't learn them quite as well. No, they do a good job. Yeah,
their designs are so different, so unique, and I'm like, man, they do some cool stuff.
I'm learning things from them now.
Yeah.
Flipped around. Yeah, really, seriously. They do a lot of things very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so crazy because we see them, and then I kind of look up to them a lot of ways too because they started off as flippers.
They did.
And they were buying at sheriff's sale, flipping, and all that stuff. And like we saw them a couple times when we were at sheriff's sale.
Silas was kind of funny too. He was like, dude, you guys are doing it, but like it got a lot harder. Like, by the time you guys got in, it got pretty stupid.
I remember days, I got them involved in sheriff sales. I went to sheriff sales, there wasn't nobody else there.
Wow.
Some of the guys that are at every one, they weren't around yet.
Yep.
And it was pretty amazing. And it was like real. I mean,
it was like, I'll take it for $1.
Maybe 1 or 2 bidders at the most.
When we all went in, it was me, Logan Kimmel, which used to work for you guys, and then Dakota. That's what the LTD stands for, Logan, Tony, and Dakota.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
And so we all went to the sheriff's sale, and I was grouchy as usual. And we were looking around at some of the guys, and they just seemed to like kind of look at you like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah,
who are these new guys? And then they'd ask you like questions that make you uncomfortable, like, what are you guys bidding on today? How much money did you bring? Like that sort of thing.
I know it. I didn't like those questions either.
And it was just like, to me, I was like, I got there and I was just like, yeah, this ain't it. Like I just knew like right away. I was like, this ain't it. We need to figure out a different marketing strategy than sheriff sales because I think we could lose our butts on this.
You can't lie. And what happened in those days is the prices in some cases were going up so fast that they paid too much at the sheriff sale, but by the time they got it, they got it. The market's kind of adjusted and they can make a few bucks.
Yeah, I thought the ARV was $135, but it was $155.
Yeah, exactly.
There was one in Arlington like that. I remember the lady that bought it. We were going to buy it for $70. It went up to $85 or $87. She thought it was worth $135. She put a little bit of money into some carpet and some stuff, listed it, got $155.
I know it. I remember those days.
Yeah.
As the song goes, those days are gone.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I think so too. So were you a flipper, and then like if you were, tell us the difference then between like flipping and then building, and which one? I mean, it seems like you like building more, and obviously MBN's not doing flipping anymore. So what are why would you build instead of flip? And then just walk us through the difference in like the process.
Yeah, well, for Tony and I, we're builders. That's our main work.
Yeah.
But we also built and acquired at one point about 75, 80 homes
Okay.
that we were renting.
Okay.
And it was
So you built them brand new and rented them.
we built most of them brand new. We had a combination of mostly new, and a few homes that we bought and remodeled.
Okay.
So we got this block of business, and we went through a period where we were barely breaking even on the rent. We were having equities,
Yeah.
building equity. But so we went out. Tony and I went out. I taught him those ropes, and we actually bought a few sheriff sales to flip in order to generate some revenues to help us with our rentals, which is what we did. So we did it at Granite Ridge for a few years. But before that, my dad taught me about sheriff sales. I did not know anything about them.
Okay.
So there's the background. And so I started doing them. I was doing them even outside of it, Granite Ridge a little bit, just as a part-time thing since the 90s.
So you were flipping properties even while you owned Granite Ridge.
Yes, just a few. And actually, I say me, my wife was on my wife.
Okay.
In fact, most of the time she'd go to the sale and buy the homes, and we'd consult, but she was doing it.
So what's the average? I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing this or you're okay with it, but what's the average profit then on a new construction? And then why would you not just do a couple more new constructions as opposed to flipping a property? It's
just variety. And we're not interested. We don't even think about sheriff sales anymore. It's just variety, doing something a little bit different. One of Tony's family members kind of got involved in it, was interested in it. And the profit margins are probably comparable.
They are about the same?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get your money back faster on a flip.
You could, potentially, yeah, especially when we went to 10 months to build a house, back a few years ago. Now we're on about a 4 or 5 month schedule. But
So yeah, let's talk about it then, because I am very curious of the home building model, because it's something that, who knows? We never know what we're going to get into. So it might be something that we transition to someday eventually.
Yeah.
We got this model down pretty good that, who knows? We freaking choose to do crazy stuff all the time. So it's something that we've definitely thought about, and other people told us it's way easier, it's way more profitable, and it's way less risk. And
to build or to
build.
To build.
That's what they said. They said, you just put a GC in, he's going to handle all of it, and then all you got to do is pay an architect to come up with the designs, and then you're going to make $30,000 usually per minimum, and it's less work, and then the turnover is sooner.
That's Eric Hensley, though.
Eric Hensley.
Yeah. He's down in Nashville.
He does a lot of builds.
In good years, I would say amen to that.
Okay.
But in a year where right now we're sitting on 50 specs.
Okay.
At an average of $350,000, added up at 7% interest, added up.
7% interest, okay. Is that from the bank?
Yeah, that's bank. It's about what you're going to pay at banks these days, 7.5 range. So that adds up.
Yeah, so because that's and then what are you paying? Interest only payments, or what's your payments on it?
Yeah, most of the time your construction loans are.
Because that's the other.
There's principal reduction that can come along if you don't get stuff sold.
But see, that's the other thing that he talked about too, was so that's about $17.5 million. But what he talked about is we're paying 12% because we're borrowing from private money lenders, and then the bank's going to fund the whole thing, and so then the bank's funding the whole thing, and you got somebody else doing it. So I don't know, it's very similar business models, but that one sounds as though it's almost less risk, but you do have to play along with the bank probably a little more, because then they got the draw periods, but then your contractor's working on that. I don't know.
The weird thing about new construction is there's still a lot of surprises. I thought we had water and sewer on our side of the street. No, it's on the other. You have to. There's so much investigation that you have to do to do it right.
Okay.
Unless there's ways to to leverage that risk, but still, it's not cut and dry. Put the foundation in, now frame it. There's a lot of variables.
Yep, and so right now you're paying about $102,000 a month in interest, just in holding costs.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Just to give you an example.
What's your other costs then of holding? Are you paying for insurance and then for taxes?
Sure,
do you have taxes, or do they not tax you? Yes, since it's a new build, they're just taxing you on the land.
Well, if you hold that new build too long, the
then they'll get you.
Assessed,
okay.
You got to mow the yard. You got the taxes. You got utilities.
You still have utilities, okay?
Still have utilities. You got yard maintenance to take care of.
Yep.
There's quite a bit of stuff. Honestly, you hope that your specs turn in a timely manner.
And what's your average turnaround time from buy to sell, like from when you actually put the money up and you're paying interest on it all the way to closing where you get the money back for that? What's your average turnaround time?
It's probably now close to 9 months to a year.
9 months to a year. And then what was it before? You said 4 or 5 was?
Well, we've gone through different periods where if it took you 10 months to build a house, then that might have been a little bit more than a year.
Yeah.
When we were building houses in 4 months or whatever, it was probably a little less than that.
And
rates were less too.
And they were selling before they even got done.
So yeah, that's true.
Maybe you guys, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I'm just wondering, do you know what your marketing cost is per month?
No, but Granite Ridge would spend would spend more than anybody else. I can tell you that.
You think it's over like $500,000 a year?
Like ours is around $30,000 a month.
It's a little bit more now.
We're spending more than that, and we're spending in the range you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they'd have to
easy to
sell
do
they probably got to sell 5 houses just to break even. Do you know how many houses you got to sell in order to break even?
Oh, you mean for the year?
No, for the month.
Oh, for the month. Oh, wow, because you got overhead too. We have 100 employees.
100?
We have 100 employees.
Oh my gosh.
All right, they got to sell 10 houses a month.
You have 100 employees? So how many are you guys running a month? And I did not realize you guys were that big of an operation.
We like to be at 400 right now.
400 a month.
400 houses total for the year.
Oh, for the year.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll get to 300 this year or not. It's a down year.
So 400 a year. And then do you know what your average profit is, or margin or percent, or?
Builders float between 10 and 20%, depending on the size of the home, and there's variables.
Okay.
And that's pretty much industry standard.
Yep, that's what I was going to guess. So our average flip is somewhere around 30,000, and so I was going to guess yours should be making a little bit more margin because it's a new build. So I was thinking somewhere around 50 to 60 for a 300.
But your flip is what price? I mean, it's probably not
150 150 to 300 is usually our average. But then obviously our costs are a little bit higher because we don't get as good of financing and different things like that. So
what you need to do is work yourself to where you can get better financing, your own financing, and get these investors. And the boys work through investors too. The Drew Wyards and some of those guys that were doing a great job that helped them get started, and then now they don't need that anymore.
So then you think the banks, so what we've found, I don't know if the business model is just different or what, because the banks will not give us usually the construction or the amount of time, effort, and energy that it takes in order to get it from the bank is so annoying that it bogs down our process time so much more that I'd rather just pay an extra 3-5% and not have to deal with the draws, like all the paperwork, and then all the other stuff that they're asking for. It just takes up so much more time that it ends up costing us more overhead because of holding costs.
If you can collateralize something where you have a line of credit, where you can build off of that as you will and need, that's the ideal. And you don't have to do that because you have closing costs on those construction loans.
Yep.
Delays. And the bank says they'll give you an 80% loan. Well, good luck getting 80%, even in. It just doesn't work that way.
Yes.
I mean, it's a good business in good days. It can be a very challenging business. Like Tony said not long ago, he says, if you look at the builders in Fort Wayne that retired well off, there's not that many of them.
Yeah, especially because of 2008. That's something that I was looking at is like, imagine that you have 50 houses in the pipeline and then they all go down in value 25%. So now you have zero profit.
Right.
And then the bank,
they're still on your books, get rid of them and sell them. Yeah. Right.
And the bank is saying, hey, we can't release any more funds. Right. We just got notice that your loan to value has to be 50% now.
Yeah. Right. Those are the realities that are in our business. And so it's a hard business. And when you're dealing with new construction, it's not just paint and carpet and maybe a few, it's everything.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with, there's a lot of subs. Sometimes we say subs, they call you subs for a reason. It's because you're sub. You need to raise your game,
Yeah.
Just kidding. There's a lot of good subs. But anyway, it's hard.
Yeah.
And then you got, outside, nature.
Yep.
Rains, sleet, snows, and all that good stuff, and public utilities. Just a lot of variables and a lot of things you have to really think about when you go on to a lot and get a home started.
Yeah. So when you're looking at it from like a high level, then What are you processing whenever you start to see things shift? Like, let's say right now, I mean, I don't know how things are going for you. Properties are sitting on the market longer for us. Our holding cost is getting higher. Like, everything is just like, man, this is getting scary. And then there's properties that we have to now rent or Airbnb that we didn't want to. We wanted to flip them, but they're just not selling. And so we don't really have a whole lot of options. We can take a bit major loss on them, or we can rent them out and see what happens. What are you doing now, or what do you do from a high level to see that stuff coming, and then like what do you do to shift or make changes? Or
on these 50 homes that we've got right now, these specs, we've got $15,000 true $15,000 incentives that on every one of those homes.
Okay.
So we can use that to buy down the rate. I mean, we can get down in the 4s now.
Yep.
We can pay closing costs. You know, do legal innovative ways to help make that house affordable.
Make it more enticing.
More enticing. So we're doing that.
Okay.
And then obviously we're being careful as we go forward. Like I said, we need to learn a little bit where the market's at, what they're looking for, and be willing to make some changes along the way too.
When you say changes, do you mean changes in like design, or when you say changes, what do you mean?
Yeah, changes in design.
Okay.
Like right now, I wish I had 4-bedroom 2-stories. I don't know why, but it seems like a lot of people want a 4-bedroom 2-story. We don't have any in inventory.
Okay.
We got all these 3-bedroom ranches.
3-bed, 2-bath.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could do that 4-bedroom 2-story in about the same price range.
Wow.
It's just the way it works out, but we don't have them.
Yep.
So being a little more comfortable, you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And the markets are changing too. They do change. 10 years ago, we hardly ever built any ranches. You know, a story and a half, 2 stories, and then all of a sudden, maybe 15 years ago, then the ranch became popular. Now it's a pretty popular option.
Yep.
And we have some 4-bedroom ranches, and those seem to go well as well.
100%.
Yeah.
So do you have somebody that's like doing this market research up front? Because that's the other thing too, is like you're obviously like, we focus on what's important and urgent. It feels like that's what I focus on. And then there's like what's important and then coming. Right. And then that's just almost just as important, because once it comes, it's almost, now it's urgent, but it's almost too late to make the decisions, because you're already losing on so much to make up for the decision that's there. So do you have somebody that's now like, hey, what design do they want? What's coming? Like, do you have somebody doing that kind of things? Or
we do. We monitor our social network stuff about what people are clicking on and how long they're staying on pages and certain plans and that kind of thing. And then also building even 300 homes, we've talked to 1,000 people to do that 300 homes.
Yeah.
So those 1,000 people come in and tell us, well, why didn't you bite on this house or whatever, and we get that feedback, and that's helpful too.
Okay. Do you put that all in a chart, or because what I find is a lot of times this stuff is so
arbitrary.
It's so like it's so like it's like
it's relative.
Yeah, it's so relative, and I'm like, okay, this person said they didn't like this one because the yard. Okay, cool.
Right.
Like
now,
that wasn't even
people,
it.
Right. And if
they just don't know themselves.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you got to be careful of that. Banking on just one opinion on one particular thing, but we do enough marketing, and we know how to measure the marketing responses, the things that we do. When we've used radio, we got a show that's on early Saturday morning, Sunday called Between the Studs. We get a pretty good return on that.
Good.
It's been on long enough now where that's helped us with our credibility as a builder, and then also selling homes.
How long is that spot?
It's 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
It's 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do TV, but, we do 30-second commercials. So
right.
I know how much that costs, so I can't imagine how much your TV show costs.
Yeah, we got good contracts on that, and the time of the day might be a little, it's early morning, except I think they do one now on Sundays in the midday part, but whatever. But there's a return.
People have started seeing me, and Dakota doesn't get it as much for me for some reason, but people are like, I know you from somewhere. Yeah. And you probably get that all the damn time, every single time you go anywhere.
Yeah.
Tony's got one of them faces though that he's just like, dude, he looks like a mixture of almost every actor out there. He's like, you look like one of them.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, that's who that is.
Yeah.
Weren't you Bane and Batman?
No. Like, did you play Superman? No.
It's not me. You're the Green Arrow.
Dean Cain.
What do you think is your best marketing source then? Like out of all of them, which one do you think gives you your best ROI?
Well, social network stuff.
Like Facebook,
Instagram, that kind of stuff gets a good return.
Okay, and then is there somebody that you go through in order to do that, or do you have in-house people?
We do. We have in-house people.
Nice.
We may expand that a little bit, but right now it's in-house.
Okay. We don't have a whole lot more time. Honestly, I get so curious about this business stuff. I feel like I just want to know even more about it. But like, talk to me about your different departments, because it sounds to me as though like, I think we could have 100 people on our team if we didn't hire out marketing, if we didn't hire out property management, if we didn't hire. So it sounds
There you
like,
go.
what's your different segments? Talk to me about your different people that you have and all your different like core groups.
Yeah, we have an accounting department.
Okay.
And there's probably 5 or 6 people in bills and accounting, maybe 6 or 7 people.
Okay.
We have a development side, and there's one person, and then I work part-time into that. So
Is that like architect?
that's in literally going out and buying ground
Okay.
and putting a subdivision in.
Okay.
That department. We have a remodeling department now, and some of our project managers cross over and they do that.
Okay.
So
Remodeling for other people?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, remodeling, people calling, I need a new bath.
Yeah.
And we're selective. We're not going to do 100 deals this year, but we'll do 20 or 30 maybe.
Okay, cool.
There are 15 or 20
Yep.
remodeling projects. We have which is additional employees. Our sister company is Choice Designs. My sister-in-law owns it.
Okay.
It's decorating, accessories, those kind of flooring, window coverings, those kind of things, called Choice Designs. And that would put us up to probably 115, 120 employees.
And you guys have like 2 receptionists even. You've got like people
We have
manning
receptionists. And then we have in-house
lobby.
salespeople. We have our salespeople are on a base, and they get a bonus based on their sales. But
Okay.
we got about 15 people that we hire that way. We have 2 offices.
Okay.
In the process of relocating one up in Ligonier, but 2
Do you have like
offices.
transaction coordinators?
No.
No?
We have a closing person.
Okay.
I'm gonna call him that. And then we have our in-house realtor that lists our stuff, Elizabeth Urschel. She does all our listing of our specs.
And then are they responsible then for getting their transaction coordinator? Probably the agents themselves
Yeah, the agents themselves,
probably have that maybe.
they don't do the title work and stuff. No, we have another
Right.
gal. Jill does all that.
Okay.
Yeah, Jill does all that.
Okay.
Cost analysis, we've got draftsmen. We have 4 draftsmen.
What is that? Like the designing kind of?
Yeah, we actually sit down with a customer, and you don't like this, well, let's talk about what you want, and
Okay.
designing something new.
Okay.
Yeah, we do a lot of that.
Yep.
People don't know it, but we build as many big homes as anybody in the area. And big as in 500,000 or higher or larger.
Wow. Okay.
Tons of them.
I thought your guys' bread and butter was 3 to 5.
Our bread and butter is probably that 4 to 7. We like that.
Okay.
But we are building on both sides of that.
Wow.
And more, like I said, that you named the builder, we're building maybe twice as many as them in that 500 and up range.
Okay, cool.
A lot of them. We have the lots in the right locations.
Yep.
And we got the drafting team that really knows how to get that thing done.
Dang, we need. I don't think we have enough time for it, but I was like, we need to know like what you're looking for in lots almost too. That way we can be like, okay, like whenever we find these, because we do come across land, but we don't know what's good
Yeah.
for a builder, what's not good for a builder. Can you go over that in like a minute?
We are always looking for land. It's probably 20 acres or more is the,
Okay.
20 to 80, 20 to 100, whatever. We just bought a farm on Simon and State Road 3. It's
Okay.
in the Huntertown area. So
Okay.
we like Northwest, we like Southwest, we like East Allen areas.
Yep.
Right now we got a lot of inventory, about 600. So we're not
Okay, so you're not
in
looking for a lot
great
of land
need.
right now. Okay.
We're always looking.
Yep.
We're always looking, but there seems to be enough lots in the ground right now to take care of the vast majority of our needs.
Okay, cool.
So this is kind of a personal question, I think, or just for me. I think that sometimes as folks tend to get older, they kind of go like, well, I've done everything I'm going to do. And then you kind of see them kind of quit or like kind of they don't have another
Coast.
goal. Yeah, they don't have another goal. They don't have another dream. They're like, I'm retired. I've done everything I'm ever going to do. I'm kind of just, this is I did the best I could, and
Yeah.
you kids are what's left, and I'm proud of you guys, and like go get
for
it.
it.
Go
Go
get
for
it.
it.
Yeah.
Pat 'em on
But
the back.
I'm done. Like
Yeah.
I gave
Yeah.
up. I'm
Yeah.
done. This is it. Now I'm
Right.
just waiting to die.
Yeah.
I imagine just based on your disposition and like the fire in you and the light in your eyes and like kind of just the way that you present, that you have some goals and some dreams, and like you're not just coasting through retirement, or is it a combination?
Actually, I'm into making feature movies now. Got one done. Actually, I have two done, and the second one, we just got contracts. It'll actually go to theatrical release. It'll be in 1,000 theaters throughout the United States here in the month of August.
Let's go. What's it called?
So that one's called Between Borders.
Okay.
It's an immigration story, a legal immigration story that we're anxious to tell about a family that we knew from our Russian days.
Wow.
Yeah.
What-
So that's a new chapter. I still like working with Granite Ridge, and I'm blessed because I'm able to sit down with a person and create something. And I think we got that need to create in our DNA. We should have. And in my case, it's houses, secure place for people to raise their family. And so I'm not ready to give that up.
That's awesome. I think we got to get to final questions.
Okay.
With the
final question.
the final question.
So this is a good question. We kind of stole from a couple different podcasts, but if you have, let's fast forward to the end of your life. So let's say you're going to live another 30 years, you'll be 100. Does that sound fair? You want to live longer than that?
It's
120.
It's fair, but it's not realistic.
All right. So we're projecting a positive potential future.
100
Make it
is
to
My
100.
wife would be
Possible.
very discouraged if you say that.
100 is definitely possible.
All right.
Yeah.
So Lonnie's 100. He went to what's that called? Columbia, and got some stem cells in the meantime,
You're
and
right, yeah.
ended up just
it's working.
just like
Stem cells are working.
everything came back great. Lonnie's in perfect health until he's 100, and then they tell him, "Hey, you're going to be dead in a couple hours." So
There you
you
go.
you have a final message now
Yeah.
that you can give that you think the world needs. And when people hear the message, they'll be like, "Oh, yep, that was Lonnie for sure. Lonnie would have said that." It can be a billboard, a paragraph. It can be a mantra. It can be a saying.
Yeah.
But it's like your final last words, your last bit of advice to people.
Yeah. Well, it's not my words, but it does come to mind, and I haven't thought about that. But one of those statements would be, I'm quoting somebody else that said, "Live your life in such a way that it makes no sense apart from the gospel." That's getting outside the box, and I think we're called to get from time to time, and I like that one. And then also this idea of let significance trump success. If they both come hand in hand, great, but as you get older and older, that becomes more and more important.
Awesome.
I like it. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
All right, guys.
That was awesome. We really
I
appreciate
don't know
you.
if that met your need or
Yeah, that was
or not,
awesome.
but
Do you have any way for people to get a hold of you, or anything that you want to plug, or just like, if people listen to this and they're like, I want to get a hold of Lonnie, or I want to get a hold of Granite Ridge, just look them up.
You mean you want me to tell them to call Bradley since you're talking about Bradley Real Estate? I don't know if you want me to do that or not.
Yeah.
They can call me at Granite Ridge.
Yep.
All right, I can do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Call me if you're interested in touching base. If you got a question about real estate or about life, I can be reached at Granite Ridge Builders at 260-469-6455.
Awesome.
I like it.
Line.
Cool. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys on the next one. Hopefully we'll be doing a lot more soon. Peace.